Welcome to the first episode of my podcast. I'm here with my good friend Louis, or should I say probably my best friend. He has known me since childhood. We have known each other since childhood. I don't remember a time when I didn't know him because we met each other before we could retain memories, I think. So I think if there's anyone in this world except for my mom or dad who really know me, then it's probably you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I could say the same of you because I'm pretty self-centered, but yeah, I think we have a strong connection. Probably,
I think so too.
I think of anyone in the world, I think I have the strongest connection with you, and I'm also here with another Louis, but it's written differently. This is the dog. It's my family dog, and if I'm kind of starting to regret not wearing socks right now because he has a very strong tendency to lick feet. He very much enjoys getting between all the little nooks and crannies in there. But so far he seems to be behaving, so that's fine. Anyway. So yeah, podcast. Why am I doing this? It's a very loaded question. And we have talked about it just briefly just before we started. But of course, you said, come on, okay. But you had the good idea of just saying, let's just talk about it on the podcast, because it's a great idea. It's a very loaded question. Why I'm starting this podcast? I think, we should.
I'm going to close the door.
Yeah, you're right. It's a noisy neighborhood. I think there's a lot of reasons, but let me start with this one. I need to get better at communicating and connecting with people.
Okay.
I've often thought of myself as a very self-centered, sometimes a little self-absorbed person, and I don't like being like that. I wanna be better at connecting with people, and that's why I'm starting a podcast, because all the other forms of expression that I have tried, be it like making YouTube videos or writing blog posts or I don't know, they're very one-directional. It's you create something and you show it to the world, and I think the medium of podcasts give the opportunity to have two-way street, basically. That's the nice thing about a podcast. You're just talking to someone else, and that's what I very much enjoy doing. And so right now I've already noticed that I've been talking for like 5 minutes straight. So
I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah. So I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's a good challenge for you to learn how to listen, how to ask good questions. Not that you're very bad at this at this moment, but I think I understand what you're saying about having a tendency to think about yourself, to talk about yourself, which can be a good thing, can be a bad thing, depends on the situation. So I think it's personally I love podcasts. I consume them daily, and I think it's one of the best ways of offering deep conversations, offering deep ideas, and it also stays human, very human. There's just something very honest about talking person to person, just two people talking.
Yeah, you're right, I guess, because I guess it's how we evolved, right? Telling stories to each other is how it's how we we didn't used to have movies and YouTube and social media and blogs and all of these other mediums. We didn't used to have them. We used to have just people talking to each other. Maybe one person was sitting by, the fire telling some kind of caveman story, and everyone was listening, but there wasn't much more than that. So I guess maybe it is the most human and most natural form of communication, I guess.
Yeah. There's people who believe we see the world through a story. We don't just witness what happens. We do, but it's structured surrounding intentions and motives, and not to get too philosophical, unless that's what you want to do with this podcast. But I mean, there's a strong argument there, and I also believe, like, especially sitting one person talking to one other person is a totally different setting than having 5 people in a room. I think there's a lot more room to go deep into one subject, to build a connection, to tell a deeper story.
Yeah, I like this idea of like seeing the world and seeing life through stories, because I very much have this tendency to think of my life as a movie, or to think of my life as in like, how can I turn this aspect of my life into a movie, or as I did the previous year, into a YouTube video, basically. And I have experienced that as kind of a destructive capability. It very much fucks with you if you try to figure out how can I make my life into something that is consumable, something that other people can watch and experience. How can I, add something interesting to this? How can I add some aspect of drama into this? And this, I have it. I don't know if destructive is the right word, but it messes with how you perceive your own life. You
Really?
stop thinking about, like, or not, you don't stop thinking about it, but you start wondering, like, am I doing this because I want to do this, or because I want to make something about this, or because I want to show people this, right? And I think this is, well, it's something that probably a lot of people experience now with like social media. Like, are we doing things because we enjoy doing them, or because they look cool?
Did you really feel like your relationships were becoming something like a commodity?
I didn't feel. I felt that there was a very significant risk of it becoming like that.
Okay.
And for example, my previous relationship with my ex-girlfriend, which I documented quite heavily, and a lot of that went on YouTube. I remember also very much considering, like, does this person fit with my goal of becoming a YouTuber, where I want to put my life online and I want to tell stories about my personal life? And so that definitely went into the choice of deciding to be with her. And yeah, I don't know. I very often wonder, like, would I have gotten together with her if I didn't have this goal of becoming a YouTuber? Or, like, did I love her if it, like, would I have loved her if I didn't have that goal? It's a very difficult question. But I thought about it as well, like before, during, and after the relationship. And I do think that I really loved her, and that, I loved the experience of being with her. And I would have loved it also if I hadn't been a YouTuber. I think I would have even loved it more, because I would have been more present in the relationship and thinking less about making videos about the relationship. And yeah.
Do
But so yeah, I think coming back to the idea of stories, I think stories can have a significant impact on our lives for the better and for the worse, I think. I think we very much exist with the illusion that there's a self, that we are a person when, biologically we are very complicated processes, algorithms. That's my view anyway. That process information, and there's all kinds of different little parts of you that communicate with each other, and so there's not really any way to say that there is that you are one person that has, free will, or all these different philosophical all these different concepts, free will, consciousness. It's all very difficult, and I think we often, if we want to introduce ourselves to someone, we often tell these stories about ourselves. I'm not sure where I'm going.
I think it's a valuable idea because the way I look at it is the world is hyper complex. It's very chaotic, and we need stories to reduce that to a certain level, and not really reduce it, but because by telling a story we're creating something as well. They have you have to handle the direction of time, and you have to go. You don't remember all of the past as it actually happened. You need to tell a story, and by telling the story, you remember it, and then you structure it and give it meaning also.
Yeah.
And that's what religion is about. That's what a lot of psychology is about. And yeah.
That's a way better way of putting it. I was struggling there. Thank you. And I think, yeah, maybe let's circle back quickly to the reasons for this podcast, right? And what this podcast will be about. Because, so you asked the question before, like, how philosophical do you want to go with this? And for me, philosophy is, one of the most important aspects of this podcast, I think, because it's about how should we be in life, how should we think about life, how should we think about the universe, and about our actions, and about our thoughts and our identity, all of these different types of questions, not just philosophy, but also human psychology. And but I do want to kind of tie it back to real, to reality, to real stories that happen to me or to you.
How it's affecting you in your life.
Yeah.
Because it's also not like you're sitting there and thinking like, oh, from this hour to this hour, I'm going to philosophize. It's just these questions you're dealing with, and they just happen to be quite philosophical. So you see this a lot when people do this disingenuously. It becomes something pretentious. It becomes more of an act of showing how smart I am, showing with these abstract ideas I'm dealing with. It becomes something like a jewel. It's to give you status, to give you some beauty, to make you attractive.
Vanity.
Vanity, exactly.
Like, yeah, exactly.
That's what we were talking about just before the podcast.
Yeah.
He's not sure yet what he's gonna call it. You said you're gonna call it the human experience.
Yes.
I think it's not a bad name. It's just a little pretentious.
Okay,
that's what my immediate reaction to it.
Okay.
It was. It's a little pretentious.
Okay, but let me explain. Okay. So you said to not explain it till we start the podcast because it's good material. Probably this discussion is going to be good material, I think. Basically, for me, the idea is that as humans, for some reason or another, we have been granted with life, with existence. You know, you could see it as we have been granted life, or we have been cursed with life. I don't really want to make a statement on that yet. I haven't figured it out yet. But for some reason, we experience things, right? We have sensations, we have thoughts, we have, you know, we have feelings, we have emotions, we experience all these things, and this idea, everything that we experience, I call this the human experience. It's just kind of like a collect all concept of everything that ever happens to us as one individual, you know?
Okay.
And so this is kind of like my idea of reducing the whole philosophical nature of all of existence into an easily understandable concept, which is everything that we experience, right? And then, wow, yeah, I haven't figured this fully out myself yet, but the idea is that you reduce everything philosophical into something that is directly tangible to us. You know, everything that we experience is something that we see as reality, right?
Okay.
Our thoughts, our emotions, our sensations, there's two other things that I think are part of it, but I forget what they are right now. And so for me, very much, all of the philosophical questions that are important to me directly relate to the human experience, which is how do they affect our thoughts, do they affect our emotions, and how do they affect our, you know, sensations, and things like, you know, suffering, but also things like happiness, things like, just our actions. Our actions are also a part of it.
Behavior,
exactly. Like, how should we behave, right? And so for me, I don't like discussing concepts of a philosophical nature that don't directly relate to the human experience, because it's pretty pointless. You know, it has no effect on us, right? And so I love having philosophical discussions that relate to how should we be in life, how should we behave, right? And I don't really, you know, I often, for example, another discussion that doesn't directly relate to how should we be in life would be, well, I guess there's not really anything, is there? Oh, fuck. I think I dug myself into a hole here.
Yeah, it's not entirely clear yet why then the human experience is the name for your podcast.
Well, because it's you know, I guess it's kind of like,
it seems like
I don't want to. I guess I just don't want to limit the topics.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it seems like a pretty convenient to just talk about everything. Yeah, you just invented the concept, and you did not invent it; it existed before you. A lot of people talk about this, like, just so you didn't have to choose a subject for your podcast. But in doing so, you kind of, on an abstract level, you did choose a subject.
Yeah,
it's
I guess
philosophy for life.
Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't have to be but the thing is, for me, I don't see a reason in really limiting the topics of the podcast or choosing like something to talk about or some way. Like, for me, it's just like this podcast is for me and for my conversational partner to have a conversation and to connect. Okay. That's the goal, right? Why I'm recording this and why I'm probably putting this on the internet, I don't know, probably out of, you know, reasons like vanity and, you know, or other things, but also kind of like a drive to create, right?
Yeah.
But the main thing is, like, I want I want to connect with someone. I want to have a good conversation. So I don't really see the point in limiting the topic of the podcast to a
Yeah, it's
single
also very
subject.
dependent on who you're talking to.
Exactly. Like some people are very philosophical in nature, and some people are very, maybe they think in a different way. They think on a more spiritual level, or some people think very much on like an emotional level.
Or like technically, maybe you
Or-
can connect on,
Yeah, exactly.
you like programming or something.
Yeah. Well, I doubt that will be the case, but you know, at some point in my life, I have definitely connected with people over programming and code and stuff like that. But and maybe I will again in the future. And so I think the thing is, like, I'm not making this podcast for the audience, right? I'm making this podcast for me,
Okay.
and by extension for the person I'm talking to, I guess.
But then why are you filming it and putting it on the internet? That's a relevant question, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Isn't there like some intention to do this professionally, and this being some form of training for your storytelling, for your...
I guess, yeah. I guess you could look at it like that. I guess I've always liked the idea of being an entertainer of some kind or a performer of some kind. But I don't want to let myself be led by these kinds of incentives of like success and fame and greed and vanity and all these things. Like they're very much a part of me, a big part of me, and they very much drive me in a lot of ways. But there's, for me also, I want to be conscious of them so that I don't let myself be led by them blindly. And so I think there are a number of reasons why I'm doing this and why I'm putting this on the internet that are healthy. And so I want to choose to be led by them and not by the other ones that I think are in.
But I do believe it's important to then confess to just be open about your intentions, that it's and to integrate them into.
Yeah, I guess. I guess you could say, you know, I like the idea of being a thought leader, or maybe a different word. You know, it's the same thing, but it's a different word. An influencer.
Yeah. Just on a more philosophical level than your YouTube videos.
Yeah, well, but the thing was, I tried to have... I think I did want to achieve this more philosophical level with my YouTube videos. I just didn't get to it because my YouTube videos, well, they were very energetic and very much focused on entertainment. And very much on being completely crazy and nuts and doing really weird stuff, that I didn't feel like the philosophical nature fit with it.
That's true. I can see that.
And yeah, and I hope this podcast lends to that side of me, but also lends to that crazy side of me that wants to do really weird stuff and wants to also talk about really weird stuff and just stigmatize things, because those, I think, are the most fun topics to talk about. Things like sex and drugs and, you know, whatever else is very much stigmatized in life. These are often the most exciting things to talk about because they have that kind of weird and dirty, and, you know, sometimes they go with... Something interesting I read somewhere is that the feelings of disgust and... What is it? Disgust and excitement? Or is it disgust and one... It was something like disgust and excitement are very close together in the brain. So they often trigger together, you know? And this is perhaps the reason for like a foot fetish, is because, you know, a lot of people are disgusted by feet, but then some people are really excited by feet, you know? And so you see what point I'm trying to make?
Yeah.
That, you know, sometimes the weirdest and the most... Well, I don't want to say disgusting, but sometimes disgust does play a part in it.
Have you seen those videos, those Mr. Popper videos, or what are they called? Like people just pop like really giant pimples and they get millions of views, and it's absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
But people watch it. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people are excited by things of a disgusting nature, you know?
Yeah.
So it's, and so some topics like sex and drugs, you know, they go paired with a lot of different ranges of emotions, excitement and disgust, but also other things. So that's just the point that I was trying to make is like, I don't know, I don't remember anymore.
But don't you think there's a reason for why they are stigmatized, why they are associated with some shame and they're not talked about? Maybe that serves a function.
I think so, yeah, probably does. I just I like being contrarian.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of evidence that people are generally attracted to things that like mildly anger them or like mildly frustrate them, because it's also on advertising level is the most ideal state to get your audience in, because they're most likely to interact with the advertising. Then they're most likely to they're most aware of the advertisement. They're most triggered by it. So those videos get more views. The algorithm likes it. That's why Facebook and Twitter. I've heard this. I'm not sure, but whether it's true. But that's why Facebook and Twitter have such a tendency to be very, what's the word? To very controversial continuously.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Well, I think it's like that, yeah.
But you also said in the beginning of the podcast, your intention is to become better listener, to make connections and to not talk about yourself all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And so we should probably shift the focus of the conversation a little bit, but one thing I do want to say about that, and I'm blanking right now, fuck. There's something. I was going to say something, but I guess it's good to switch the focus on the conversation. So, I don't know, we have talked a lot about really vulnerable stuff in our lives before.
Yeah, that's true.
Really the happiest things, the things that make us the happiest, but also the things that really fuck with us on a certain level, the things that really affect us, the things that shape us into who we are or who we believe we are. And, I guess we talked about this before the podcast as well. Like, I told you that I think a lot of connection is found in like vulnerability and having conversations about topics that make us feel really vulnerable, because when you allow yourself to be vulnerable with someone, it's kind of a show of trust. And then I think that's something that makes us feel connection. But there's also something perverse in that, I'm recording this, I'm putting it on the internet. So simultaneously, I'm trying to get someone to open up to me and to trust them. And simultaneously, I'm trying to put that to abuse, kind of, to use or abuse that vulnerability and put it out there for the world to see or hear.
I think it's partially on your guests. It's their responsibility to be conscious about their boundaries and to talk about things they want to talk about. And perhaps you should give them the freedom to, after it's recorded, to have the choice to not publish something or to edit things out. It's obviously bad for the podcast because it ruins the continuity, but I think, that's how I've seen people deal with this question. But it's
guess you're right. I guess maybe I should make this decision to prioritize, prioritize the connection with the person and the trust with the person over the integrity of the podcast or over what the audience can see. Because this is very much like the primary goal should be to connect with the person and should not be to get views or to get some kind of exposure.
Yeah. But it's like if you're succeeding in connecting with the person, there's an increased possibility that you're gonna get views because that's what people want. Some people want. There's other markets as well, but yeah, I think it's a good philosophy to have. Perhaps you'll be the next Joe Rogan or Lex Friedman.
Doubt it, but
you're gonna have to ask more questions then, though.
yeah, I know. But
I don't think you have asked a single question.
I
yet.
know. Okay, I don't know. What? Let's see. Let's. I always have this tendency to ask really deep and really prodding questions.
Okay.
So maybe let's
Go
start
ahead.
with something softer. For once, to go against my nature.
Okay.
So that we can more easily
Build trust.
build trust, because we're used to having very deep conversations, but we've never really done this on camera, I think. So maybe it's a good idea to build it up as if we didn't even know each other.
Okay, let's try that.
So I think a lot is going on in your life right now.
Okay.
So you just graduated. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
How do you feel right now having graduated?
Mostly relief. I'm proud of it, but I'm quite practically oriented towards it. Like I'm just happy it's over and I can go work and make money. And but at certain times when I'm sitting alone and kind of let things sink in, I'm very proud of it because it may people. I did a degree in history for the viewers watching. And people may be like, okay, it's not an engineering degree. It's not the most useful thing right off the bat. You have to be a bit creative to develop your career based on that. But it's definitely not an easy thing to do. I'm not gonna say it was really hard. It was difficult, but it's also it mostly took a lot of effort, and that's what perhaps I learned mostly is to make an effort and to be consistent and like the values on one hand, the subjects I am now a little bit comfortable with. I know a little bit, but it's also just being forced to write X hours of a day, to read, to do things I wouldn't do if there wasn't an incentive towards it, if I wasn't forced to do this. So I think it's all, yeah, but that's perhaps a philosophical answer to a question that was supposed to be basic.
No, but yeah, I guess started out a bit more about the feeling than ended with a bit more philosophical. But yes, you can tell it's my first time trying to do this.
No, now is the time to ask a follow-up question.
Yeah. So what are you, like, right now, do you feel mostly fear or mostly excitement about where you're going in your life?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't want to say a little bit of both because that's just an easy answer, but initially I was mostly excited. The moment I got my results, I was screaming. I was very excited.
How are your results, by the way?
I got 14.9 out of 20 on my thesis and 16 on my internship.
Nice.
So that's okay.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, but now the last week I'm starting a company and I'm starting a job. I'm getting my first job within my company, which takes a lot of work I've never done before, and it also takes a lot of practical stuff with the bank, with the organization that's for starting companies, and that creates anxiety. Yeah. Because I don't know a lot of things about this. Like, how do I claim my money? How much should I pay myself? How do I pay taxes? I don't know this shit. I can tell you about the history of Marxism, but I cannot do a tax bill.
Yeah, well, these are, yeah. Well, I can definitely help you with these things. Not during the podcast, obviously. But
that would be an exciting podcast about taxes.
For sure. Let's make this.
It probably exists, actually.
Probably, yeah. But it's not really...
Not your target audience.
Not my target. I guess there's a reason for limiting the topics that we talk about, and after all.
But I guess taxes do belong to the human experience, so...
No. But okay, so you're dealing with a lot of bullshit, I guess, that, you know...
And I'm also moving, which is a stressful thing in itself.
Yeah, you have a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And... But I do feel like you're in a better position in terms of uncertainty than you were a couple months ago, right?
That's true.
So...
yeah, I also feel like quite self-confident because I feel like I'm making steps towards... Well, I have a job, I have an apartment, my life is basically as much in order as I can reasonably have it. I drank too much last night, so that's maybe not exactly the best, but I had a fun time, so...
You know, sometimes you gotta sacrifice your human experience of the next day to have a better experience on the previous day.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, okay, so... you're starting this job, right? Freelance writer for a company. And so something I wonder, like, well, I think we've already talked about this, but is this something you really want to do?
It's probably one of the best ways to... If you take the collection of things I can make money with, it's probably up there in the things I would most want to do. But if I could freely choose, if money wasn't the issue, then I would not do this now.
No. What would you do if money was not the issue?
I would make YouTube videos. Yeah.
What's your reason for preferring to make YouTube videos over just writing? I think we've talked about this before also, right? Because, well, maybe you can just explain. Maybe you can just explain for yourself why you like making YouTube videos, why that's interesting to you, and then I'll ask the follow-up question again about why not just writing.
Yeah, I definitely want to do both. I guess the choice for YouTube videos is not... My answer just before was perhaps not totally accurate, because perhaps if money wasn't an issue, I would indeed be more so focused on writing and perhaps write a book. But I think if money was an issue, the more accurate way to say it is I would write scripts for YouTube videos, and I think I would do the audio myself and just let everything else, the whole video element, the video editing, let someone else do that. I think that would be my most accurate answer. But I guess it's also not entirely true, because my choice for YouTube is, on the one hand, made by... I believe there's economic opportunity there. I very much believe in the company. I believe in the future of it. I believe in the economic value in it. It's a very competitive market, but I think it's so diverse that if you bring a reasonable product into it, it has a lot of opportunities. That's what I'm trying to say.
So you talk a lot about the economic value of it. Do you also feel like it has artistic value, as in, for me, this is something I struggle with a lot, is like kind of the push and pull between wanting to create something of artistic value that has meaning, right? And creating something of economic value that generates money for you, right? And I think these are two things that very often conflict with one another, right? Like, I'm going into the movie industry now, and there's very much like this divide between like Hollywood, which is focused a lot on making a lot of money from movies and making movies on really big budgets and making movies that have mass appeal, and then the, more independent filmmakers, which are really, more, they see their movies more as art, and they see commercial movies more as, a product, I guess.
Yeah.
How do you see this on YouTube? Because I experienced YouTube very much in that way too, of this conflict between the economic and the artistic.
It's my intention to have this as a creative expression. Now I've just started doing this, so I've chosen to make shorts, to make TikToks and shorts, and I very much noticed that perhaps mostly on the substance, on the content itself, it's difficult to bring a nuanced argument, which I want to do, into 60 seconds. So I think that's some form of creative expression, but I think even within the short format, there's room. It's not like one or the other. It's a continuum. And well,
what's more important to you, right? I think you've said it's creative expression, right? So, what can I assume that like the artistic side is more important to you than the economic side?
I wouldn't say that.
No.
I think I want to see it as a business, and I want to be very honest and open about that. But I do not think that is incongruent with offering nuanced content, with offering content that's reliable information, because you're dealing with history. It's very important that it's nevertheless also always subjective, because you're choosing what you're talking about. You're creating a narrative about certain events, and you want that to be. I guess it's most important to have the intention with the intention with which you're creating this. Is the intention to inspire, or is it to inform? Is it to create anger? Is it to yeah. I don't know if that's an answer to your question.
Yeah, for me it's just like, I think, yeah, maybe I'm starting to see the world in a bit more black and white, but I just often see this problem with doing things for money. Like, I like, one of the reasons I'm doing this podcast is because I have this innate drive to create something and to talk and to connect, but there's also that side of me that wants to make a lot of money and get famous, and there's this conflict between these two, and I often have this idea that if I let myself Like if I allow myself to potentially profit off of this podcast at some point in the future, then it will damage the integrity of the podcast and damage my main goal, which is expression.
But I think it's, luckily enough, there's an audience which is looking for expression. So I think, and there's also a lot of examples on the market which are very successful in expressing and in connecting, which are simultaneously probably very profitable enterprises. So I think there's definitely also counterexamples where people are led by money, are choosing to get into these controversial subjects to play into this market which is present. But I guess it's up to you. It's how you deal with it. And I don't know if I can say this, but you're in a rather safe rather safe situation financially then. So I guess, yeah, the risk is limited.
Yeah, so I guess I should just do it without trying to make money off of it because I can. It's not really, for me, it's not, I think what you're saying is, for me, it's not really a conflict because I don't have that bigger need to profit off of it, I guess.
But I guess you have the desire, and it's natural to have that desire. So it's not like there's no risk at all. I guess also in the short term, the chance that this will create lots of views and lots of advertising opportunities is zero.
No, probably.
So I think it's just something you have to stay conscious of along the way.
Okay, fair enough.
And I think you're very suspicious of yourself. You're always...
Yeah.
I've noticed this a lot. You're very much questioning your integrity and your
because I think
nature.
Because I think I have done things that I consider to be bad things, and that I consider to be, I don't consider myself a person with integrity, I guess.
I think you have integrity because otherwise you would not have this conflicting conscience right now.
Yeah, maybe I should see myself more as like a person who makes mistakes.
Yeah, as everybody does.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, you have the haircut of Jesus, but you're not Jesus himself. So, and I'm not Christian, by the way. I just
no, yeah. But do you see yourself as a person with integrity?
I mean, it's kind of a difficult question because I think I am, but calling myself a person with integrity, that's what exactly a person without integrity would do. And I mean, by answering...
Well, I think in a lot of ways, a person without integrity would also just be like, no, I don't have integrity, I don't need it.
Yeah. I think they would not really be interested in the question as they're not... It's like a foreign subject to them.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Yeah, you're right, yeah. So yeah, I guess it's good to be like, to be hesitant to call yourself a person with integrity.
But it's also, in doing so, you're implicitly... What's the word?
Yeah, you're implicitly calling yourself a person with integrity by hesitating to call yourself a person with integrity.
Yeah, exactly.
But this is like a rabbit hole that we cannot go down, This is a downward spiral. Like, if you have that, I think we should just accept that there's probably no such thing as a person with integrity,
I think that's quite reductionary.
I don't know.
So we should just forget the concept integrity, or like...
I guess not.
We're talking about integrity, so how can there not be integrity? and also it's a concept, it's a human concept, so it's just like it's like a tool. It's like, yeah, we have to, it's not like a physical quality, it's something we talk about and we use to measure or to
discern, maybe.
Yeah.
Discern between different types of people.
Yeah.
You know, there's no, I guess there's not really black and white. You know, one person has integrity, one person doesn't. It's like, well, this person has more integrity than another, maybe.
Yeah, and it's also, it's like, it's not like measuring length. That's a fixed unit, continuous, always a fixed unit. But as it's an abstract concept, we can kind of choose. I'm trying to put this into words, but I don't know how. We choose ourselves what the unit of measurement is. It doesn't. Yeah. But I guess this is going into linguistics.
Yeah, but it has a strong connection to philosophy. I don't mind exploring other fields, you know. But I see your point. It's, you know.
Yeah, I'm not.
It's just. I think what you're commenting on is like. Some concepts are of an abstract nature, and they can't be clearly defined, but they still have utility.
Their exact utility is them not being definable. It's like that's a good quote.
Wow, so amazing.
So philosophical.
If you ever get famous, you know, I have a, you know, some I'm gonna have some very important quotes on camera, and then I can claim like, oh, you know, I you know, I was there. I unlocked his creativity.
Yeah, but do you know Wittgenstein?
No, I don't.
He's one of the most important linguistics of the 20th century. Very important philosopher. He thought he had solved all of philosophy, because all philosophy is done through language. And he basically said that philosophy was as if it were mathematics without having a proper theory of numbers. So linguistics is like the elementary field in philosophy. And he developed a theory, his initial theory, with which he thought he had solved all of philosophy. And he basically very easily explained, he said, language just points at things. So that's a pillow. Pillow signifies a physical object. And that's why we can learn languages, we can communicate. Words signify things. But then later in his life, he realized he did not actually solve all of philosophy. And he said that a lot of language does not signify one thing. These are language games in his terminology. So terms like love, terms like justice, terms like integrity, they don't signify an object, but they are undefined, and we play with them. They serve a dynamic role. They have a dynamic meaning. That's perhaps a more accurate way of...
I like that. We play with it. It's a game.
But he did not finish his second work, in which he tried to solve these language games. And it's not been solved, actually. Because in the 1970s, then there came the post-structuralists, which had a completely different theory, which was more so focused on humans being confined by language. And they kind of impose, some of them do, some of them don't, that you cannot escape the language you were raised in, that structures your way of viewing the world. What do you think about that?
I don't really think anything about that. I think that the nice thing about like movies, for example, is that that's something that you can use. I think one of the biggest reasons why I want to make movies is because they allow you to share something in a way that you cannot put into words, right? Because you can show emotions. Like, it's very hard to describe emotions, and it's sometimes also, you know, you might not be able to do it, or it might be exhausting, or it might not, you know, it might not move you as much as seeing it, you know, seeing it and really, in terms of like empathy, I think it's easier to empathize with someone you
Yeah,
can see
definitely.
than someone who just tells you. Like, I can tell you, I'm really sad. Oh, I'm fucking depressed, you know? People can be like, okay. But if you know, if you show them, and if you, well, you have to, I guess you have to make them care for the person or for the character, because it's a fake character. But sometimes it's easier to empathize with, you know, someone completely fake, you know, someone you create out of thin air, than a real person who's like sitting right next to you. I don't know. That's just powerful, I think. So I think movies. Well, if you think about it, we used to have movies that had no dialogue, that had no text. So a lot of movies were an international language, right? Because they were silent movies. So I don't know. Doesn't really answer the question, but I think I don't know. I think it's a pretty irrelevant question to me anyway.
That's fair.
Yeah. I don't know, but maybe this connects to why I'm doing this podcast in English, because, well, we both speak Dutch and we normally speak Dutch. And well, we're doing this in English because I want to make this podcast in English. And so in some way I am kind of prioritizing the integrity of the podcast being all English
I guess so.
over our ability to connect, because I think we might be able to connect better
Yeah,
in Dutch.
I think so too.
Um,
So I guess you're making a financial choice.
fuck! Yeah.
So have you decided what you're gonna call the podcast at?
No, I don't know. You know, the only two names I could think of are Liam. I don't think I've even said my name. I didn't introduce myself at the start of the podcast. Yeah, okay, so I'm Liam, by the way. Anyway.
I think, how long are we talking, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. How long has it been, like?
An hour or so?
Yeah, probably an hour, yeah. Okay, I'm Liam. Anyway, so the two ideas are... My main idea is the human experience, because I like it because it makes it not so much about me, which is my goal, right?
Yeah, I was gonna
Even
say
though I've talked probably 45 minutes of this podcast about myself, I'm trying. I want to not talk about me so much, but you know, it's nature to connect what you talk about to your own experience. So the other idea is Liam Uncensored, which is a name that I've been trying to employ for a while now. I wanted to use it as my kind of second YouTube channel where I can be more vulnerable, where I can be more philosophical. And I don't know, for me it has this kind of undertone of like still being weird, still being like, you know, uncensored. It's like, I'm gonna be naked. That's the vibe that it gives, right?
me, it gets
I don't want to be naked, but kind of that, you know, feeling of being exposed, which connects to the name of my blog, which I call Liam Exposed, because it's that idea of being vulnerable. But Liam Uncensored has more of that, you know, being naked, but in a crazy way, you know, in a way that's attention seeking.
To me, it has kind of like a political association.
I guess,
like
yeah.
You're pro free speech or you're anti other things.
Yeah. And I mean, I am those things, but it's not really, you know.
You don't want to associate yourself with that.
I think those concepts are very much abused by people who want to seek attention, right? Because they're like, oh, you know, I'm pro free speech. I can say whatever I want, you know. I think the concept is good, but a lot of people abuse it to kind of seek status, like a lot of the reason why, for example, Trump was elected was people like, oh, he really says what he thinks, you know, he really says what he thinks. He's really someone bold and honest, and you know, power to him, you know. And I don't know, I don't really want to be like, obviously I want to be seen as that, but I think it's, you know, intellectually dishonest to present yourself as that. I don't want to see myself. I don't want my name to be self-absorbed, you know? Because you are creating, like, whether you want it or not, you're creating a brand for yourself somehow, and you don't, like, I don't want to communicate myself as someone like that, basically.
Yeah, it's also, by calling yourself uncensored, you're kind of implying there's something out there which is censoring you.
Yeah.
Like, and that's not really the case, is there?
Yeah, I don't think we've talked about anything crazy, right? We haven't said anything that's super controversial.
I don't think so.
Right? I mean,
I think the things about Trump might upset some people, but
whatever. You know, yeah, for sure. But and so that's why I preferred for my blog the name Liam Exposed over the name Liam Uncensored. And I don't know, maybe if I didn't have my blog, which I just started like last week also, maybe if I didn't start the blog, I would call the podcast Liam Exposed, but I don't want to call the podcast Liam Uncensored now. And I think also the idea of the human experience, it's like, I like the idea that it's not about me.
yeah,
like
it doesn't have your name in it.
Exactly. So it's kind of like more of a reminder to myself also to not let it be about me all the time, and let it be about the human experience.
I guess you can,
whether it's mine or yours or someone else's, you know?
You can kind of track or like measure how much minutes in a podcast you talk about yourself, and like make a spreadsheet, and like try to
bring it down.
Yeah.
Then I'm gonna be like,
just watching the spreadsheets as you're talking to someone.
Like a counter next to their head, you know?
Okay, I have 24 minutes of talking left in this podcast. I gotta use it wisely.
What's your problem? You want some affection? This dog is an attention whore. No, okay. Yeah, no, but so I think I'm gonna call it the human experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's a good point to stop the podcast.
I think it is, and then I think it's good that we brought this back to, you know, not focusing on myself so much. It's something that
yeah.
For another episode, for every future episode, it's something that I for sure have to, you know, pursue to be a better listener and to be a better, yeah.
You know what I just realized?
Yeah.
Your main means to become a better listener, that this podcast has been talking about yourself having difficulties listening to people.
It's so meta, bro. It's so meta. Okay, wait. So we can't end the podcast yet. Then we have to keep going.
But I gotta pee.
Okay. All right. Well, you know, there will be another episode for sure. I think we have so much to talk about that, you know, it would be stupid to not do multiple episodes together, especially because, you know, it's for me. It's not for anyone else. So
it's
who cares
not like
if
you're
I
gonna have the king next episode or like...
Yeah, for sure. I can think of like maybe 2 or 3 other people that I could bring on right now. But yeah, and I think we have there's more in us, you know.
I think it was a good start, but there's more to talk about. Well, we've been talking about we've been talking for years, so
yeah.
Why would you assume it would stop?
And I think also this is like the pilot episode of the podcast, so I think it is in some way somewhat normal that I talk about myself a bit more.
That's a good way of rationalizing it.
Shut up. Okay, fine. We'll just, you know, we'll do another episode and we'll call that, we'll call this one the pilot, and then we'll call the other one the one with Louis van de Merckt. All right. Okay. So this was episode 1 of The Human Experience.
Liam's experience.
It does sound really pretentious. Thank you for coming, my good friend, my best friend, Louis van de Merckt. Wait, give me a hug. I want a hug. Come here.